I'm Theo.
And I'm Juliet.
And this is Apologies Accepted.
We offer an entertaining look at some of the big issues in history by examining public apologies of the famous and infamous.
We're looking at politicians, serial killers, actors, and you.
Send us a public apology you would like to make, and we'll read it on the air and give you a chance to redeem yourself, or just get some guilt off your shoulders.
We're here for you. Once a week, maybe more if you're really, really sorry.
This is Apologies Accepted,
the podcast.
And I'm not Theo.
And I'm not Juliet.
And I want to know what's shaking bacon.
Wow, let's see. What is shaking bacon?
Let's jump right into the bacon and see what's going on in everybody's lives this week.
That's not going to work. Can you hear that at all?
I hear you, but I don't hear anything else.
Oh. It's bacon. I have a little audio of bacon sizzling in the pan.
Bacon?
A joke that went absolutely nowhere because the sound did not transmit. So great. Thanks, phone.
Good try.
Let's see. Nothing.
Nothing. That's a lie.
Truly. I am dying to hear all about your breakfast, shall we say, bacon.
My breakfast.
Yeah.
That's funny.
Your bacon.
Well, I did go to New York, but are you sure you have nothing?
I totally have nothing. It would be the most boring story in the world. I did not go to New York. I did not go to an art show. I did not do anything. I literally sat down and breathed. That was my week.
I went to New York, and I went to an art show. I went to stayed in Union Square at the W Hotel, which is getting a little old now, but huge room, especially for New York. So, and it had a view of Union Square, so it was in Union Square. Had a view of Union Square and the farmers market, and just ideal. It was a little bit worn around the edges, but otherwise just an ideal hotel room. So that was great. But we went to the Brooklyn Museum to see the Hannah Gadsby Picasso exhibit, which we talked about on previous podcasts. And it was pretty much what I expected based on the negative reviews that it had been getting. It was interesting. I was interested. It kept my attention. I looked at all of the art and read all of the comments. The review card. What do you call those little review cards that are by the paintings? They must have a name, but I don't know what
they are called. Little painting cards. Little
painting cards.
Yeah.
So I read all the little painting cards, and each one had a little quip from Hannah Gadsby, which was kind of, I don't want to say immature, but not really funny and not really interesting, which is disappointing.
Oh, no.
But the rest of the information, I know, but the rest of the information on the cards, painting cards, was good. So I enjoyed it. The two things that stood out to me most about this exhibit were, one, that the painting, so there were Picasso paintings and drawings. Uh-huh. And then there were, alongside them, women's art, art by women, and commentary on the art by women. And the first thing was that the art by women was not necessarily really related to the Picasso. So I'm not sure what they were doing in the exhibit. They weren't all, necessarily influenced by Picasso or in some way related to Picasso. So I'm not quite sure how they picked those pieces of art. So that was kind of confusing. And the second thing was that a lot of the women that they did pick the work of art by said they were influenced by Picasso. So I guess they were influenced by Picasso. Maybe that's what it was. But they said that they not that they were influenced by Picasso so much really as that they said they had learned to separate the art from the artist, which is the opposite of the whole point of Hannah Gadsby, which is saying we cannot separate the art from the artist. And, we hate Picasso because he was such an asshole. I don't know. So it was interesting. It was worth seeing. It was worth whatever, $25 or whatever I paid for the ticket. And I enjoyed being at the Brooklyn Museum and would like to go back sometime to look at some of the other art. Although I did look at some of it. I didn't look at all of it because we were in New York and we wanted to wander around in New York. So we had some of the other things that we did where we had some great Ethiopian food at this place called Masawa. It was absolutely delicious. And the most important thing that I did was I had Dunkin' Donuts coffee for the first time.
So what was that? Okay, I should be all like, tell me more about the art show. Tell me more about that coffee because I've never had it.
It is fine. It is just coffee. I mean, I had a latte and it was a latte. It was not the best coffee I've ever had, which I didn't expect. It was also not the worst coffee I've ever had, which I kind of did expect. So, if you're ever around at Dunkin' Donuts, whatever, get some. But we also, of course, went to coffee shops and sat outside and drank coffee and in the European manner, watched the people go by. And it was a great trip. I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed seeing my cousin. And enjoyed New York. It has been such a long time since I've been to New York. I hesitate to even think how long it had been. But it has changed and it hasn't. So I would go back. I will go back. I will make a point to go back again relatively soon and explore a little bit more. So we walked around all around Union Square and all the neighborhoods sort of in the southern part of the city. We went to Hudson Yards, which is really touristy, but nice, nicely done. And we saw the Vessel, which I mentioned previously to you before the podcast, which is a building that they built and had to shut down because people were jumping off of it, which is really depressing.
People ruin everything. Look at this nice building. Let's commit suicide.
And then we saw the Edge, which is just this part of a building really. It sort of sticks out into the skyline. Oh,
no. Did you walk on that or whatever?
Of course not. Are you kidding me?
I'm already panicking.
No.
Okay, good.
I looked at it and I was panicking. So.
I just heard the name and I started to panic.
So there you go. New York is a good place to visit. I recommend it to everyone. And that's my bacon for the week. Go see New York.
That is some juicy bacon. Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't get to stay very long really because I flew in on Friday night and left on Sunday evening, so it was really like a day and a half. But we went to brunch on Sunday and wandered around a little bit more and looked at things. And I think it was a good use of the time that I had. And it was great that my cousin was able to come up. She lives in Delaware, so she took like the train, which is an hour and a half or so to the city. So and she hadn't been to New York in a little while either, just as a tourist. She goes there for work every so often. But so it was a good experience for both of us, I think.
I had this idea that if I lived on the East Coast, God forbid, but if I lived on the East Coast and I was like an hour outside of the city or whatever, that like I would be in the city every weekend. That's kind of what I think, right? And probably would not.
Probably not because it's always there, like, right? You'd be like, oh, maybe next weekend.
Yeah, it's like when you live next door to Disneyland, you never go to Disneyland. Right.
Well, for other reasons too.
How dare you?
So, yeah. How many times did you go to Disneyland when you worked at Disney?
I worked at Disney, and I will say that I did go to Disneyland for air quotes around fun, but for fun, because I had free access, right? And so, like, I could bring in a guest, or sometimes I could bring in, like, 3 guests, right?
Right.
And so, fun for that. But prior to working at Disney and post working at Disney, never.
Yeah. Right. Exactly.
Proving my point.
Exactly.
But when you work at a place, it's different.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So the Hannah show, was there a quote that like sticks in your mind as kind of like, what the fuck is this in relation to the art? Like, was there one that sticks out as
not really, but they were just really kind of blithe comments and almost thoughtless. And I would have thought that someone with the skills as a comedian that she has and obviously she's very intelligent, would have come up with something a little more trenchant for the works. But I don't know, maybe she studied art in college, so she does have some background in art, but she didn't go on to study art. So maybe it was just something that she felt that she should leave to the other, let the works of art speak for themselves as much as possible, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either. But that is disappointing that you did find the show to be somewhat what's the word? I don't want to say lackluster, but like the negative reviews maybe had some validity.
Yeah. They did. I think they did. But again, it was worth seeing the art, and it was worth going to. And they had a lot of stuff from, well, not a lot, but they had several pieces from the Gorilla Girls, who I really like. So there was some art there that I really appreciated seeing, and I just wish it had maybe a better spotlight on it, or a little more attention paid to it in some ways. But yeah, it was totally worth it, and I think it's going to be up for a while. So everybody who is within the sound of my voice should go and see it. Take your weekend flight to New York, no matter where you live, and go see the Hannah Gatsby Picasso exhibit at the Brooklyn Museum.
I would totally go see it.
You should. Go ahead.
Great. Let's go now.
So what are we talking about today, Theo?
Well, speaking of women and women's voices, we are talking about, let me get to it, basically bias against women in scientific publishing. It's no secret that female scientists have a harder time than male scientists in getting their works into publications. And typically it's a case of, hey, let's kind of just use your initials so people think you're a man, or better yet, let's get a man. Let's get a man and get his name on this, right?
Right.
And sadly, that is just still how it is.
That's so true. So the example that we're talking about today is that in 2015, Fiona Ingleby, who at the time was a postdoc in evolutionary genetics at the University of Sussex, co-wrote an article with, I think, her fellow postdoc Megan Head, and submitted it to the respected scientific journal PLOS One. And I think it's pronounced PLOS One, PLOS One. I've always thought it was PLOS One. So that's part of a group of publications put out by the Public Library of Science, PLOS. So that's what that is. Their study surveyed 244 people with PhDs in biology to evaluate male-female differences in success at getting postdoctoral funding and fellowships. And Ingleby told Retraction Watch that, quote, in a nutshell, we found that men finished their PhDs with more other author papers than women, but no difference in number of first author publications. Then we found that the number of publications affected how long it took PhD grads to successfully find a postdoc job, but this effect differed between men and women. It was interesting, but as it used survey data, it was difficult to gain anything conclusive behind the results, so our discussion was pretty open. Ingleby and Head said their article received a rejection from PLOS One with just one review, which is interesting. Ingleby said not only did the review seem unprofessional and inappropriate, but it didn't have any constructive or specific criticism to work on, which is, of course, a key to these reviews. They're supposed to be guidelines to improving your article, so they're supposed to provide you with hints and suggestions as to how you can improve the article. The reviewer had actually written that the study was methodologically weak and had fundamental flaws and weaknesses that cannot be adequately addressed by mere revision of the manuscript, however extensive. So what were these fundamental flaws? Well, the reviewer suggested that the authors find one or two male biologists to work with, or at least obtain internal peer review from, but better yet, as active co-authors, in order to serve as a possible check against interpretations that may sometimes be drifting too far away from empirical evidence into ideologically based assumptions. Of course, the article had already been read and commented on by male colleagues. I mean, they're not going to put out an article that hadn't been commented on by a variety of people. The reviewer also claimed that male doctoral students produce more papers than females, and that male scientists publish in better journals and work longer hours. So you can see a little bit of bias here on behalf of a lot of bias on the reviewer's end.
Only bias, yeah.
Only bias, exactly. What kind of person looks at an article written by women and says, "You need a man. You need a man."
Clearly, the kind of person who looked at that article and said, "Hey, there's one thing wrong here. There's no men involved. We need to fix that."
It's just nuts. And Megan had said, we initially sent an appeal to the journal when we first received the review back. We thought it was taking them too long to respond. All we received from them was a form letter apologizing for the delay. But really, this is an open and shut case. We couldn't see why it was taking so long, and we didn't want to see this swept under the carpet. So, of course, being 2015 and, being the modern era, more or less, they tweeted about it. And then Megan had said, everyone paid attention. My co-author posted the tweets just before I went to bed at 11 p.m. Australian time. I woke up the next morning and Science Magazine had covered the Twitter storm. It's been really crazy, the response. And as a result, Times Higher Education read the entire review and noted a few other interesting suggestions besides the ones that Ingleby had posted on Twitter. Included in those suggestions were that in offering an alternative interpretation of the data, the reviewer said, it could perhaps be the case that 99% of female scientists made a decision in midlife that spending more time with their children is more important to them than doing everything imaginable to try to get one of the rare position at the utter pinnacle of their field. Or perhaps it is the case that only some small portion of men, and only men, have the kind of egomaniac personality disorder that drives them on to try to become the chief of the world at the expense of all else in life. The reviewer also suggested that male doctoral candidates may have co-authored more papers than females because they can work on average 15 minutes longer per week. Such a small difference of average effort could easily be due to marginal gender differences of physiology and health, the reviewer says. So perhaps it is not so surprising that on average, male doctoral students co-author one more paper than female doctoral students, just as, on average, male doctoral students can probably run a mile race a bit faster than female doctoral students. Which is crazy.
He actually even typed that, like...
I know. He not only thought it, but wrote it out and sent it in.
Yeah.
And we don't know who the reviewer is because the PLOS One uses a single blind review process, which allows the reviewers to know who the authors of the paper are, but does not allow the authors of the paper to know who the reviewer is. So, but PLOS did respond to the tweet storm and the articles that were in Retraction Watch. The article that was in Retraction Watch about this. And initially on the 29th of April, which is pretty soon after the article in Retraction Watch, it said, PLOS regrets the tone, spirit, and content of this particular review. We take peer review seriously and are diligently and expeditiously looking into this matter. The appeal is in process. PLOS allows academic editors autonomy in how they handle manuscripts, but we always follow up if concerns are raised at any stage of the process. Our appeals policy also means that any complaints of the review process can be fully addressed and the author given opportunity to have their paper re-reviewed. 2 days later, they made an additional statement. There has been a lot of talk about peer review in general, with some questions raised about single-blind review on Retraction Watch and other venues. We have been asked why PLOS One uses a single-blind system and whether we'll consider other peer review systems in the future. PLOS One currently uses single-blind review and feels that cases such as this highlight the flaws in such a system. We believe the answer lies not in making the process even more closed, such as by using double-blind review, but by opening it up and making it more transparent. We are currently exploring a system on PLOS One with an opt-out feature whereby reviewers' identities are made available to authors and reviews posted alongside papers. 2 weeks later, after Science reported on the issue, PLOS One said, PLOS One has asked the academic editor who handled the manuscript to step down and will no longer use the reviewer in question. PLOS One has strict policies for how we expect peer review to be performed, and we strive to ensure that the process is fair and civil. We have taken a number of steps to remedy the situation. We have formally removed the review from the record and have sent the manuscript out to a new editor for re-review. We have also asked the academic editor who handled the manuscript to step down from the editorial board, and we have removed the referee from our reviewer database, which is what they should have done in the first place. I don't know if you know, if the article was ever published. I didn't know the name of the article, so I couldn't look it up to see if it had been published, and I didn't want to look at all of the articles written by these two co-authors because they have published additional articles in the future. I did note that. So I don't know if you know the answer to that question.
I do not know the answer to that question, but what I do know is that this incident really does highlight the issue at hand, which is women are given the short end of the stick in science.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. A 2013 report found that the same studies were rated better if the reviewers thought the author was a man than if they thought the author was a woman. So that's not the only study that proved that kind of thing, but it's just a notable one. So, yeah, you're absolutely right. Women do get the short end of the stick in science, and I would say in many places.
Oh, totally, yeah. In particular, I think it's evident in academia, and it just, that is what it is, unfortunately. And it's a well-known situation / curse of being a woman, we'll say almost in any field. Let me mansplain this to you so you understand how hard women have it.
How hard do women have it, Theo? That's funny.
Jokes are writing themselves.
So that's what I have on the issue. Before we get to talking about the apology, there was a separate apology. Do you have anything to add?
Well, yeah. So just real briefly, gender bias in academic journals is a concern. And so I did my very favorite and now famous run to ChatGPT and ask it
Oh my gosh.
some questions.
Wow.
Yep. And so I did. And I'll say, like, there was some fun, good stuff that came up. So what I think was most interesting to me, gender bias in academic journals, it has very famous, I don't know what to call it. You know that thing about the male gaze in film, right? So kind of that's true in academic publishing as well. So here we go. There is the Matilda effect. And so this is in particular to academic journals and female publishing. The Matilda effect refers to the systemic underrepresentation and undervaluation of women's contributions in scientific research. It was named after suffragist and women's rights advocate Matilda Jocelyn Gage. This bias leads to women scientists being less likely to be recognized for their work and to have their contributions cited and compared to their male counterparts. There's a famous case called the case of Jocelyn Bell Burnell. Jocelyn Bell Burnell discovered pulsars, and that is not only considered, it is one of the most important astronomical discoveries of the 20th century, and it was initially attributed solely to her male supervisor, Anthony Hewish. Although Burnell played a crucial role in the discovery, including building and operating the radio telescope used in the research. I mean,
Right.
She built
Pretty
the
critical.
telescope.
Right.
She was not initially given proper credit because she built it backwards. And then I'll say the next one, which ChatGPT just kind of, notice how I'm blaming the AI for this?
Of course, it's AI's fault.
What ChatGPT did.
Bad.
Totally. It coughed up the study on gender bias in peer review. But this is from 2012, and it's a study that was published in PLOS One. It examined gender bias in peer review process. The study found that manuscripts authored by women were more likely to be subjected to gender-based criticisms and received lower overall scores compared to identical manuscripts with male authorship. And so I always love those things when they like take a study and the author's name is, Harriet Lady Girl, and it goes out for review and they collect the reviews, and then they change the name to Tom Manley, and that goes out, and everybody applauds Tom Manley for this amazing piece, right? Sometimes including the same people who initially rejected when it was female, right? And so, I'll say probably the most famous example in all of this is Rosalind Franklin and the discovery of DNA. And I didn't hear about her until like I don't know, my third year in college and in biology courses. So I had to take Bio 1 and Bio 2 to even get to hear about Rosalind Franklin. And again, not going to change anytime soon. That's just how the world works. If they think it's a man, all the better. And I wish I had an answer to make it different or better.
Yeah. When you say that's just how the world works, do you feel that there's no way to change that? That there's nothing that can be done, or I'm not sure what that means.
Yeah, well, me either. It's just the way the world works, Juliet. You don't understand. Yeah, it's a lot like racism. Well, it's not a lot like racism, but it's very similar to racism, right? It's just this thing that's built into the culture, and it is there, full stop. And so ways to work around it. Sure, studies can be submitted without the author's name attached to them.
Right.
We use a series of numbers or some fake identifier, right?
Yeah.
And it's sort of that question of how do you separate the artist from the art? That's a little bit of also what's at play here. So the work in science and in academia should speak for itself and stand on its own. It doesn't matter if, I'm forgetting her name. Let's imagine an article written, Jane Goodall. Let's imagine that Jane Goodall publishes a piece, right? It gets a lot of attention because it has her name on it. Sure, absolutely. But take her name off of it, and the work is still going to remain the same. And I think that when it comes to science, we really should just remove people's names until the review is done. And then when it's published, you get your credit, right? Your name can appear. That's probably the best and only way to do it.
Right. Right. Do you think there's any way to change that bias that exists in society now?
Not forcibly.
Save us, Theo.
I'm going to. Ready? But it's generational changes, and it's
I see.
just gonna take time.
Right.
And I mean, within our lifetime, our own mothers could not have their own checking accounts.
I know.
Right.
I know.
And so
Right.
how far society has come, great. But at the same time, there is still a long way to go. And if only.
And it takes a long time. It takes a lot longer than I would have wanted or would hope. I was just thinking the other day that back when I was a kid, when Anita Bryant was speaking out against gay people and there was all that hubbub about, anti-gay bullshit. That was like 50 years ago now, and things are better now for gay people, but they're still not where I'd like to see them. But it's taken 50 years to get even the improvement that we've gotten. And now that all of the hubbub and the attention is on trans people, is it going to take another 50 years before trans people are as okay in society as even gay people are now, which is, to be honest, not that okay. So it does take a long time for these things to happen, and it's disappointing that societal change seems to take so long. But we've had a lot of people out there working to improve the situation for the LGBTQIA plus society, and without those people, I don't think that the change that has happened would have happened. So I guess this is a call to action for everyone to participate in trying to make the world better for everybody, as we both do every day of our lives. I know,
and successfully,
tirelessly and successfully.
Yes, that's just it. There's no way to. I mean, on one hand, I would love to argue one person can change society, and sure, yeah, that does happen. But for stuff like this, it's just hard baked into the culture. It takes repeated attempts to highlight the issue, point at the issue, try and resolve the issue, and then you resolve the issue, and then everybody sort of looks at like
backsliding, and there's times when things seem to be going in reverse, and it's very frustrating and difficult. So I agree with you.
But we always get there. I mean, we
so far.
We'll say what would be like a quote that we'll bring throughout the ages. We always get there. That's the quote that we'll bring throughout the ages.
By Theo.
Yeah. Society, what do they say? It swings towards justice.
Yeah.
Right? And so, will we get there? Yes, absolutely. Are we going to get there in the next 10 years? No.
I hear you.
Sorry to tell
So
you.
let's talk about the apology.
Yes.
The apology for this particular issue that we're talking about with the article in question. So Damian Pattinson, who's PLOS ONE's editorial director, wrote, "I want to sincerely apologize for the distress the report caused the authors and to make clear that we completely oppose the sentiments it expressed. The report contained objectionable language and the authors were understandably upset. We are reviewing our processes to ensure that future authors are given a fair and unprejudiced review. As part of this, we are working on new features to make the review process more open and transparent, since evidence suggests that review is more constructive and civil when the reviewers' identities are known to the authors. This work has been ongoing for some months at PLOS ONE, and we will be announcing more details on these offerings soon." Again, I don't know if they actually did that. I should have looked it up, but I should have asked ChatGPT if PLOS ONE has a more transparent review process. But I don't know the answer. Looks like you're going to ask.
I'm going to.
That's awesome. So while you're doing that, I'm just going to discuss the apologies on its merits. So was there an expression of regret? Kind of, not really, not excited about it. Was there an explanation of what went wrong? Sort of. They said the review process was not open enough. So I guess they kind of explained what went wrong. I don't know if I agree with their explanation, but that's another question. Was there an acknowledgement of responsibility? Not really. Was there a declaration of repentance? Yes, they did say that they were sorry. They sincerely apologized. Was there an offer of repair? Well, they did say they would try to make the review process more open, but they didn't do anything to address the harm that was done to these particular authors. So I guess the re-review, if the re-review was offered to them, would be an offer of repair. But again, I don't know for sure that was done. And was there a request for forgiveness? No. So looks like you got an answer.
I do have an answer, actually. And so let's do this. Let's rate the apology. I did not read the full answer, so I don't. And let's see if the answer changes our rating.
Our rating. Okay. I give it a 4 out of 10. So 2/3. Is that 2/3? No, that's not 2/3.
Bad at math, so it's not 50%, it's 40%. So whatever that is, 25%.
Yeah, I give it a 4 out of 10. What do you give it?
I give it a 3.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and nice that it happened. Glad you acknowledged it. The bit that keeps me from doing a 4 or a 5 even is the line, "We apologize for the stress
that we caused."
Yeah. It's not for the mistake.
You're right.
We're sorry you're sad.
I totally missed that. So I give it a 3 now too, or maybe even a 2.
See, it took a man to step in here.
It took a man to get the right number. So what did ChatGPT tell us?
Well, ChatGPT, my question was, does PLOS ONE have a more transparent review process in publishing? How's that even like a question, right? More transparent than what? But ChatGPT heroically coughed up an answer, and that answer is yes. PLOS ONE is known, yes, full stop. PLOS ONE is known for its transparent review process in publishing scientific research. PLOS ONE is an open access journal that aims to provide a platform for the publication of rigorous scientific research across various disciplines. The journal emphasizes transparency, openness, and accessibility in its publishing practices. Here are some key features of the PLOS ONE review process. And there's 5 of them. Peer review transparency. PLOS ONE follows an open peer review process where the identities of the reviewers and authors are disclosed.
I see.
This approach allows readers to see the comments and feedback provided by the reviewers, fostering transparency in the evaluation of research. Inclusive criteria. PLOS ONE focuses on the scientific rigor and validity of the research rather than subjective assessments of potential impact or novelty, right? So the science is the science, and we're not going to allow any sexy nonsense to happen in our journal. Let's see, rapid evaluation, post-publication peer review, which kind of interesting. PLOS ONE encourages post-publication peer review and community engagement with published articles. Sure, that I think would happen anyway, but I'm glad you encourage it. And then data availability. Plus one emphasizes data availability and requires authors to provide detailed data. Well, I mean, yeah, that's if you're publishing a scientific thing, you do have to do that. And so it's not as a result of this particular situation, but it does seem like plus one, at least as far as ChatGPT is concerned in the year 2021, because ChatGPT is famously frozen in time. It only knows what happened up through 2021. So plus one could be run by Nazis right now, and it wouldn't know.
Okay, I don't think that changes my my rating. Although it's good to hear that they did change. I don't think they did it really because of this article. They said the work was ongoing anyway. So yeah, 3 out of 10.
3 out of 10. Sorry, guys, you needed to. I don't know, really actually address the situation
your apology
with the authors.
Yeah.
So, yep.
Disappointing to see that things are still as bad as we knew they were, but we didn't really need proof, but there's proof if you needed it. So for our apology expected, or who's sorry now this week, I mean, can we not talk about the submersible? Do we kind of have to talk about the submersible? That's the only thing that I could think about when I thought about apology expected this week.
And what an apology that will be, right?
Yeah, right, exactly.
What a horrible, tragic situation. It is maddening and makes me angry, you know? It just needless, stupid, everything ridiculous. About it.
Completely appalling.
It's just how great would it be if I was like, best thing that ever happened, funniest story of all time. Can't believe how great it was.
I mean, on the one hand, you can't be too sorry that a bunch of oppressors have died. On the other hand, they're still human beings. Their families are suffering, even though their families are probably oppressors too. It's a tough call. What infuriates me is that it was completely unnecessary. It was just the hubris of largely the CEO, who obviously felt that the submersible was safe because he went on it and died himself, but really did not perform the checks and balances that should have been performed in that case, as far as I can tell. I am a submarine expert, so.
Well, me too. I've never been on one, and I will never go on one.
Absolutely not. Are you kidding me? I wouldn't have gone on one before, but certainly not now.
Never, ever in the history of ever. No. And it's not because I don't like to do things. It's because I don't want to.
I like that. No, thank you.
God. Oh, that was so awful. Those days when we were doing the oxygen count. Yeah. And
just horrible.
Just envisioning what that would feel like. And
I mean, you do have to have some compassion for those people that if they were down there, just, oh God, how awful.
Yep. No. And so I'll say, like, given what we know now, that it was an implosion and happened pretty much very quickly the moment they went off radar, so to speak.
Yeah.
Far prefer that.
Absolutely.
Makes me so sad. And yet how this one story touches on so many things within the culture. Like we've got the billionaire club, right? Rich guys doing stuff to keep themselves busy. We've got the classism involved, how all the helicopters and all the rescue crews. I mean, sure, it was a big deal. I'm glad there were rescue crews. I'm glad there was world attention on this. People should not have been trapped in a submarine. Terrible and awful. But there was a boat of, 600 migrants?
500 something,
Yeah, from Pakistan and I do believe they had a national day of mourning in Pakistan after, and so the country did acknowledge it. But in terms of newsworthiness, that was a morning.
We never would have heard about it if people
Google
didn't
News.
say, "What about this?" You're all paying attention to the submersible, but what about all these hundreds of people who are dying? So it wasn't like the news picked up on it on their own. So absolutely, I agree.
Yeah, no. And then I don't want to use the word. I'll just say like interesting factoids, right? The wife of the Ocean Gate CEO / founder is a descendant of two people who died on the Titanic.
Right.
The stepson of one of the billionaires who went to the Blink 182 concert, while the dad was, we didn't know what had happened. And so as far as the kid knew, the dad was in a submarine on the ocean floor, and he went to a Blink 182 concert and got into a fight with Cardi B.
He did?
He did, because she tweeted. I
didn't know that.
Yeah, apparently it's a thing. And he
fighting with Cardi B is a thing, or this is
the fight he had with Cardi B was a thing. So he tweeted like, I'm at the Blink 182 concert. Some people might say it's distasteful because my father's trapped at the bottom. My stepfather is trapped at the bottom of the ocean in a submarine, but I really like music. And so, and we all grieve in different ways. Whatever. He's 19. Sure. I give a kid a pass. Cool. Stupid move, but whatever. You have social media. And so Cardi B tweeted something like, "Oh, this is so gross, and you shouldn't, be doing that. You should be at home thinking about your dad or whatever, right?" And he was like, "Shut up, Cardi B. Don't you tell me what to do."
Oh my God.
Turns out that our friend, the 19-year-old, has a history of stalking women and saying foul things to women. And
oh my God.
That's all I sort of know. I didn't dive, no puns intended. I didn't dive into his story. Sorry, I can't help myself. So gross there, right? And then he tweeted the next day a picture of himself saying, "I'm single, ladies."
Oh no.
Great, right? And then
tasteless. That's
sort of all I've heard, other than he posted a video, which I did not watch, where he yelled at Cardi B like the third day in. I think somebody took his phone away from him, and so good move, whoever did that. Smart.
Seriously.
You definitely need to keep that kid off of social media for a while.
You don't want to fight with Cardi B. Cardi B's going to win.
And your dad, I know you're just 19, but at the same time, you are 19. Like, I was paying my own rent when I was 19.
Right.
Oh gosh, what else was in that stupid story? You have the hubris of the CEO, right?
Yeah,
so like,
unbelievable.
I've used carbon fibers, and some people say don't do that, but I say break rules and you'll make money. Sure will.
And safety is a waste of time. Didn't he say something like that? Safety was a waste of time.
And I don't want to say like the irony in all of this, but he died, so right. So it's not that he got what he deserved, but. And then I'm sure the families are going to sue the fuck out of Ocean Gate Corporation.
What's left of Ocean Gate, yeah.
Absolutely. How would you not sue the fuck out of them? Right? It doesn't matter what terms and conditions you signed, even though the terms and conditions apparently mention the word death 3 times on page 1. So you're going to die. But okay, that's one thing. But it's another thing if you're just flagrantly disregarding safety protocols that should have been disclosed to people in advance.
And talking about it,
And then,
absolutely.
So we have the 19-year-old stepson, and then we have the 19-year-old kid who was on the submarine with his dad, and who apparently was terrified and didn't want to go, but did it because it was Father's Day and it was something for his dad, which, it's that whole cult of male. I guess
machismo.
Yeah. It's like you have to do what your dad says, and that's that. And so the patriarchy failed somebody again. Yeah, yet again. But at worst, it failed a man. And so
patriarchy hurts men too.
All of that, that tough, and
so
it was now gone. Right? It is faded in the history of, it's off of my news feed, the growing civil war in Russia, or the first round of civil war in Russia. That's pretty
Well, I heard that they
Interesting.
paid off the dude that was coming for Putin. So I guess, I mean, I don't know that they paid him off, but I'm sure they paid him off. So I don't know what other kind of agreement they could have come to that would turn him back. But he's turned back now. So I don't know if there is or isn't a civil war.
Very strange. Yeah, it's very strange. Like he's
It is
going
strange.
to
Does
Belarus.
he have the conviction of his beliefs or not? I mean, yeah.
Yeah, and like, what were you going to do when you got to Moscow, right?
Right.
It's kind of like the dog catching the car. Like,
Right, exactly.
you got it now. What are you going to do? And so, yeah, for all that, yeah, it is a strange world.
Maybe Putin agreed not to kill him.
That guy's fucking toast. I mean,
I think so too.
you're only dead, dude. You're
That's right.
only dead. Stay away from windows. Windows and
right.
stairs. They love pushy.
Radioactive materials.
Oh, would you like some tea? Here's some plutonium for you too. Plutonium, whatever that horrible drug
Yeah, I
is.
forget
It
which
sounds
one
like
it was.
plutonium.
Yeah. So that's all I've got this week. I don't know if you got anything else to bless us with. Any other
To
opinions? or
bless
thoughts?
us with. Yes, I do.
Yes.
Let me tell you about when I was in the 3rd grade. No, I have nothing.
All right. So next week we'll have more. I'm going to North Carolina, the Outer Banks, the week after that. So I'll
sounds
be here
great.
next week. But the week after that, I'll be gone. Hopefully the weather will be good. We'll see. I understand it's quite hot in your neck of the woods, by the way.
It is only
Is that
hot.
true?
It was so
I heard it
nice
was
for so
115.
long. And yep, nature has conspired to ruin any fun plans I might ever have because it is hotter than the sun outside.
How is your garden doing?
It,
Don't forget to water it.
I'm going to say, is so awful. Like, I put all those plants in and I spent
Yeah.
all that time initially, right?
Yeah.
And so what happened is weeds, all these weeds sprung up and they're now taller than most of the plants. And I can't find the oregano anymore because the weeds grew into it. I thought the adorable baby possum was eating my tomatoes, which was cute, right?
Yeah.
No, it's rats. It's RATS, rats. Yep.
Oh my God.
There were 3 of them. 3.
Wow.
3. And they were the size of kittens.
Holy shit.
Yep. They were pretty big and still kind of cute, you know? So, and then
I know.
because I'm so giving and so loving, I can't call the exterminator and have them killed because I'm like, I know what they
How can you kill
do.
rats outside, though? I mean, there's an infinite number of them out there, right?
So, well, yes, there are a lot of rats in the world, and I can't kill them all.
You can't.
No, they obviously they put these little rat traps out, and so basically they just put some poison on some bait in a black rectangle that the rats run into and eat the bait. And then it dehydrates them and they can never get enough water and then they die.
Oh my
and
God,
it's
that's terrible.
awful, right? And so I can't do that to these cute rats that are eating my
innocent
tomatoes
rats.
and my blackberries. Motherfuckers got a hold of those. Had 3 delicious blackberries on the vine waiting for me to get to them. And they are now gone. I was saving those. So yeah.
Well, you probably have 1,000 zucchini or whatever you planted. If you plant any squash, you're going to have...
Would you believe that rats
What?
actually
What?
like squash leaves?
Oh, no.
The stems apparently are
no.
filled with delicious, I don't know, juice or whatever. They're kind of wet. And so, so they ate half of the squash. My cantaloupe plant, though, is like easily 12 feet long.
Damn.
And it has put out a cantaloupe, right?
Yay.
Or the beginnings of one. And it is really gross looking. It looks like a big, fat, hairy grape. Gross. I don't like it.
Oh, funny.
So now I can't look at it because I like
Probably
cantaloupe.
the rats will eat it, so
God damn it, you're right. They will. Maybe
you don't have to worry about that.
the hard
Put a
outer
little
shell.
cage around it.
So that and the watermelon, which is growing and dying at the same time. How do I explain that? I don't know, right? But it's 10 feet long, but it's barely alive. I don't know. Yeah, and so
Oh well.
that's that.
Next year you'll know better when you have your new house. If you get a new house.
We'll have a new house because house hunting is happening
Yay.
now. And there is a cute backyard there, but I think I'm done. I might get a tomato plant and
Put some
put it in
rosemary
a container.
out or something, and lavender.
Yeah, just container plants. But I'm not into weeding, and honestly, it is.
No, me either.
It's over.
It's a pain.
So, good luck to the people that rent the house after me.
Yeah.
Oh gosh,
a lot of
forgotten garden.
rat attracting plants.
Who knew? Who knew?
Not me.
I didn't know. Yep. And so
All right.
that's that. Next will be chickens. I'll just get some chickens and
Oh yeah, cool. Nothing could go wrong with chickens.
no, nothing at all. They just attract foxes
Tune in next week
and
for roosters and foxes and all kinds of
things
predators
that eat. Yeah,
attacking
cats.
Thea's home. Right, exactly. All right, thanks everybody. We'll see you next week, and stay cool, cucumbers, and don't trip potato chips.
Take care and goodbye.
Bye. Thank you for listening to Apologies Accepted, the podcast.
You can find links to the articles and the sources in the show notes.
To submit an apology or find out more, visit us at apologiesaccepted.net, where you can also find our merchandise.
We're on Twitter at Apologies Accepted.
And on Instagram at apologies.accepted.
You can support our important work at Patreon.com/Apologies Accepted.
And fuck Facebook.
Bye.
Bye.